Yes, hello, welcome. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to our expert talk on sustainable and affordable housing here at the Euro Mena show. My name is Rahel Zipner. I'm project manager for Spain, Italy, and Portugal at Friedrich Naumann Foundation in Madrid, and I will be your host today. Before we start, just an advice to our audience who is watching this panel. Please, as we've already said before, please feel free to comment and ask questions in English or in Spanish through our MDGo platform, and we'll be happy to answer your questions in the end of this panel. So today, we want to talk about a topic which affects us all, housing. Raising rents and buying costs and a tight housing market situation is a problem many of us are confronted with across the Mediterranean. And probably anyone who has lived in a major city already experienced this. So today we want to discuss how to make housing sustainable and affordable at the same time. And that's the question I'm going to discuss with my lovely guests today. First of all, I would like to introduce here on the table with me Roxana Nicola, who is president and one of the founders of the Fundación para el Avance de la Libertad, as Valentin already mentioned, a Spanish think tank promoting freedom values. Mrs. Nicola was born in Romania under Ceausescu's communist dictatorship, which shaped her life, I assume. And she was a classic liberal activist and co-founder of the Libertarian Party in Spain. She is a co-founder of the Libertarian Party in Spain. She's an active blogger and writer. Welcome, Roxana. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, and thank you, Naumann Foundation, for this opportunity.
Then, also, I would like to introduce Dr. Rafael Prado, who we've just seen also in the video before in Barcelona. Now he's here with us in Madrid. Dr. Prado has a PhD in law and political science from the University of Barcelona and a visiting research fellowship at the University of Geneva. Dr. Prado is a member of the UNESCO Chair of Sustainability at Polytechnic University of Catalonia. Welcome, Dr. Prado.
Thank you.
Then, digitally joining us is Dr. Javier Heredero Esteban, advisor on urbanistic planification in Barcelona for the Party of Ciudadanos, and an architect. He worked as project professor at San Pablo University and obtained a PhD in architecture project from Catalonia Polytechnical University. Dr. Heredero, it is a pleasure to have you here as well, joining us digitally.
Thank you for your invitation to this housing panel, Rachel.
So today, as I already mentioned, we want to dive into the discussion on a topic which affects us all, and best and worst practices to solve the housing problem can be found all over the world and also all over the Mediterranean region. So if I just think, for example, of my own hometown, Berlin, the first thing which comes to my mind when talking about housing is the infamous rent cap, the Mietpreisbremse, as it is called in German. Intended as a rent price regulation tool to secure affordable rents, it actually turned out to have negative effects and led to less supply, less access to housing, increased legal uncertainty, and also less investment instead. So, Mrs. Nicola, I would like to direct my first question to you. What is your opinion on such price limitation measures?
Thank you, Rachel. Indeed, it's a very, very important issue. Actually, in Spain, the debate was very, driven on the cap price policies because the current government wanted to introduce this kind of price regulation in the future housing law that they are preparing. And at the Foundation for the Advancement of Liberty, we start right away working on a project, on a study, to learn more about how these policies in other parts of Europe have affected, and if they really solved the housing problem, or if they were actually a big part of the problem and creating more problems, because this is the issue with interventionist policies. They pretend, although they are very good intended, they pretend to solve a problem, but on the long run, they are not solving that problem and instead adding more problems. So what we have found in our study, which everyone can download from our website, fundalib.org, is that this kind of price cap policies always generate scarcity, both for current rental housing as well as new construction. They always generate artificial prices, okay? So that pushes people to the black market, thus generating legal instability and uncertainty for a lot of owners, and of course for people renting those houses. Also, they push owners not to have sufficient income so that they can be able to invest more in maintaining those houses, so they depreciate, they lose their quality, and at the same time, they, of course, generate an increasing amount of bureaucracy, what we call red tape. Which is unsustainable even now, but on the long run, it's the death of our free market initiative, let's say. At the same time, we have to understand that another bad effect of these price cap policies have generated, for instance, that many constructions, new constructions, are built in areas where there isn't so many people asking for that demand of houses, and instead they push away areas of development, and they push away initiatives that are innovative, and that, as we are going to see during this panel, we can adopt here in the MENA region and be ambitious about it. So I would say, I would resume a short equation from our point of view, is that we have to find the best solution, and the best solution always has to take care of property rights, rule of law, liberalization of land, and of course free enterprise with smart cities.
Thank you, Mrs. Nicola. I think you're already touching a lot of points we're going to discuss, and I see that price intervention is really not advisable, because you're kind of creating a different market with distortions you're not able to control. So let's talk about the alternatives then. We are called upon to develop sustainable, smart market-based solutions then to reduce bureaucracy and obstacles and to improve the access to housing, obviously. So how should public policies respond to the deficit of access to housing? And how can we promote real policy solutions for a really pressing social issue without these negative backlashes? So I want to ask this question to Dr. Heredero. Could you elaborate on this and maybe give some concrete examples or flagship projects you could mention from your own experience?
I'll try it. There are two problems for housing access, which are related. The shortage of supply of air in big cities for the large number of people who want to live in them, and the price of them that comes from this missing product. In Spain, especially in Barcelona, we have to add another problem, the shortage of rental housing in the market, whether private or public, both. Less than 25% of dwellings are for rent only in Barcelona. And from this 25%, only 2% are public ones. So we have a problem here because we have a very market. Spain is a country of owners, and we have to encourage private homes to go to the rental market to expand the offer, and therefore to try to reduce the prices. This has to be done through measures that give tax incentives to owners and to give them legal security through laws that guarantee a fair balance between owner and tenant. Of course, about what was talking Roxana, of course the rental sector must be regulated. In fact, in Spain is regulated by the law, a national law. A law that provides rentals for less than 5 years or puts social conditions on contracts. But one thing is a normative regulation and another is to mark limits on the home prices. As say Roxana, Nicola, these solutions have been proven in many cases to be counterproductive. There is another class of houses that should go to the market to improve the offer. That's my opinion. These are the old buildings. In Barcelona, we have almost half of buildings around 10 years old. It's an old park of houses. And the strategy has to be the rehabilitation of them and their adaptation to the comfort standards and sustainability of new buildings. And now, through the European funds from COVID-19 crisis, we must do an effort to improve the quality of our housing stock and therefore improve the supply. And of course, we need to increase the role that public administration have to play with creating a public park of rental housing for the most needed sectors of society. Maybe young people, the elderly, and people who have few resources. This housing park in cities like Barcelona is difficult to develop. That's the reality, because the scarcity of land in a city as Barcelona makes difficult to create this park. And it's not, it takes a long time to reach that park. We have to think, but we have to think about new generations and not expel them from the city due to the lack of housing supply. From Ciudadanos in Barcelona, we have developed a long-term strategic plan, long-term strategic, not short, long, it's obvious, from 2016 to 2025, 10 years, to increase the public housing stock in order to consider the city council as an actor, as an owner of a rental market, and therefore to try to influence over the control of prices of the offers on the market.
Thank you very much for this extensive elaboration on the difficulties and the problem which arise, and talking about the limited availability of the supply of housing. It also comes to my mind that I think, how can we make sure that also disadvantaged groups get access to housing? I mean, one of the great challenges is really to secure housing for everyone. I'm thinking of families with low income or young people who are facing more difficulties to access the housing market due to job instability and unemployment. I mean, prices in many major cities are skyrocketing to buy or to rent an apartment or a house. So impossible for many people with limited financial possibilities. So what can be done to facilitate the access to housing for disadvantaged groups in particular? Mrs. Nicola, maybe you would like to add on this.
Yes, Rachel, thank you very much. Actually, when we look at our current policies, we see that this kind of, as we call it, interventionist policies in this particular sector lack the ability to take the broader picture into consideration, and they miss generally the ramifications that this kind of interventionist policies can generate in our societies. Therefore, from a free market perspective, from a libertarian policy perspective, let's say that the solution is quite complex, and it must always have to take into consideration land law, first of all, municipality, all the mayories and all the public administration locally and regionally have to take into account that it's a responsibility for them to have a good regulation. And also we have to take into account fiscal reforms and labor reforms. Because Rachel, you were talking earlier about disadvantages of people coming from backgrounds that are not so, favorable and that are not so well prepared. They are poor than other in our society, and we have to think about them. And we see that interventionist policies always are going to create more barriers, entry barriers for those people especially, and for low income and middle class owners. Because the rich can get out and solve their problems differently than the rest of us. So I would insist upon these 4 pillars: ambition, land law, municipal land liberalization, fiscal reforms that will, help ownership and private property rights, and of course a labor law that people can, have access to a lot more income, and they can, afford a house.
I think we could continue to talk about this for a long time. Obviously, in this session, we can only touch upon a few points. So what we're really called upon, what I get from this, is that we're really called upon to implement new ideas. And when I think about how can we create a support system for new ideas and innovative solutions to strive and to really work, I assume that it is a basic precondition that a lot of factors interplay with each other. So different stakeholders, policies, laws, civil society, and so on. So I want to direct my last question to Dr. Prado. Can you elaborate a bit on how to create a support system for alternative, innovative solutions for housing, and how to support and develop community initiative practices to meet the demand of housing on a big scale?
Thank you for your question, Rachel. So, to promote innovation in housing accessibility, we are to analyze things in a contemporary perspective. As my colleague, Ms. Nicolau, told, the smart cities is one of the better answers to this challenge. In perspective of this challenge for the 21st century, to create a support system for innovative solutions for decent housing, we should bear in mind that the housing is a fundamental human right. Since in the ancient Roman Empire, the house was holy and sacred, but the contemporary society with the capitalist system transformed the housing in a commodity. So if we keep in this way, considering housing right, housing as asset, a commodity, we are not going in a good way. So housing rights, the house itself, the home, should to have this sacred value, should be back to this importance for the basic level of the society. And then governments and public policies are quite important on this issue to work in these subjects to create innovative and new policies to respond this new challenge. We realized that the house became a commodity and more asset, and is much more beyond than a fundamental human right. And then these innovative solutions should to take a perspective of gender issues, human rights issues, and mainly sustainable issues. There is a necessity to reconcile public policies related to housing with the environment and with the sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prado. And I see that my dear friend Valentin has joined us.
Thank you very much. First of all, Roxana, Javier, Rafael, and of course, Rahel. We got a few questions, but I think you already answered them. Just in case you want to point something else, Nabil is asking how to tackle the problem of shortage of housing in cities and the oversupply in rural areas. I think you already talked a little bit about that, but in case you want to point something. And Elena was also asking, can the creation of more social housing be a strategy to achieve price regulation? I think you all achieved those topics. I see Roxana was talking a lot about that social housing from the government. But in case you want to point something else just in a few seconds.
So we see these really are the burning questions. So I guess we already tackled them quite well. So maybe for the first question, Dr. Prado, would you like to go ahead?
It's a very interesting point to see that COVID pandemic accelerate and show us a new phenomena, not so new today. FAO organization, for United Nations Organization for Food and Agriculture, already launched many reports related of a very increasing phenomena called neo-rurals. Neo-rurals are young, active people, professionals between 30 and 40s, doing an urban exodus. This urban exodus means that young professional people are migrating to the countryside. And then the countryside is prepared for this new population, for this new kind of neighbors. It's an answer that we should to discuss as scholars and as politicians and so on.
Totally, totally. Thank you, Dr. Prado. And I would like not to miss out on Mrs. Nicola and Dr. Heredero, if you would like to add anything on this question or
perhaps Dr.
or the
Heredero
second
first.
one.
And
Dr. Heredero first? Yes, please.
Thank you. Well, I think every situation, as COVID now, gives us a possibility of to change our way of life. And I think we can improve our society by finding new ways of life. Let me talk as an architect. Years ago, when arrived TV2 houses, changed the distribution of the houses, makes bigger living rooms around the television, couches, and send the dining room maybe to the kitchen. Now, to stay at home for working and studying will change our homes. Sure, we'll change our homes. We don't know exactly how we will change, but we must think that these changes will be sustainable, affordable, how we say in the beginning, and we have to create comfortable situations to work and to live in this new situation.
in my case, I will be quick. The answer, once again, is private property, rule of law, and of course, the fact that our administration must understand that any policy has to foresee the ramification in which they are going to affect the life in the city for the people. That being said, we must be ambitious and, for instance, follow examples of other cities around the world that are already implementing new strategies, new technologies, the city of Oslo, for instance, or the city of Dubai with all the technology, all the smart city, reducing a lot of red tape, thus reducing waiting list for the construction permit, therefore allowing the market to build new houses in a fastest way. Also, we must think about, for instance, Singapore, which is a very, very big city with big challenges, and they were able, to integrate everything from new technology, a cooling system, house living, and all that into a very, very smart grid. So we have the examples, and we should be smart and use it here in the MENA region also. So free markets, again, is the solution to our housing problem.
Thank you for your answers. I'm leaving because now we are going to commend the panel. So I leave you here, Rahel, to say goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone. I'm very happy that we discussed this burning topic of sustainable and affordable housing. We're called upon to keep discussing solutions in a forward-thinking manner. That's what I take from this discussion, to change for the better. Thank you so much, everyone, and I would like to hand over to Valentin and